Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. I'm going to ask Senator Strauss, is any other elected member of the delegation going to be joining us?
Senator Brown regrettably can't attend today. We have Representative Garcia and myself. And with you in the presence of the mayor, we have a quorum. And so the budget submission, though, that you have was shared with Senator Brown, and he has indicated his co-sponsorship of it, for lack of a better term.
I did not see Representative Garcia. Good afternoon. Madam Mayor, and I are co-chairs whenever you want to begin.
I'm fine to begin, Mr. Chairman.
I'm waiting for you.
Oh, okay. Let me just say, thanks to everyone for a good year in our efforts. And I know that we have a continued focus on how we move our statehood efforts ahead in the next Congress. Let me also acknowledge the service of Representative Garcia and thank him for his service to the residents of the District of Columbia in our statehood efforts. We, of course, are ending a extraordinary year in many ways. Our COVID response, of course, is front and center, but also the clear demonstration of what a lack of statehood means for the district has also been front and center, from violations of our autonomy to very significant short changes in federal funding. And even as we talk about what we need moving forward, our lack of a vote in the Congress is laid bare. So I look forward to working with this delegation to build on the successes, but also finally push through. I think we all can be proud of having a positive vote in the House of Representatives, having more co-sponsors, having achieved the support of the Democrats in our DMV delegation, including House leadership, as well as winning support from the business community, the Washington Post, and others, but most importantly, 86% of our voters. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I turn to you. Today, we will ask Senior Advisor Perry to make a short presentation on education and awareness in the Congress and across the country. And I know any other business before the commission you'll put on the table.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to echo what you said and reiterate a little of it. We remember back in early June when the civil protests ranged across the country and in the district, and there was actually a day or two when the President of the United States was threatening to take control of our police department. And that is a piece of what you were referring to when you spoke of how it would be different if we had statehood. And when the Congress adopted the CARES Act and treated us as a territory which had the effect of denying us roughly $750 million. I'll repeat, $750 million because that we were treated as a territory and not entitled to the minimum that the states, including 2 states smaller than the district, would get. Those are all examples. I won't reiterate the rest of what you said, Madam Mayor, just to echo it. Do Senator Strauss or Representative Garcia, do you wish to make any remarks? Senator Strauss, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this opportunity. One, I expect that we'll have, let me welcome Representative Garcia. This will be his final meeting as a member of the commission. He was one of the inaugural commissioners. We appreciate his service, and I look forward to elaborating on that at another point in the meeting. Let me also thank both the mayor and you for your leadership during this historic time. The lack of statehood has clearly become even more of a life or death issue than it often has been. We used to talk about the injustices when it came to funding for our needle exchange program and other public health programs, women's health, but this pandemic has laid bare the terrible injustices that we face and the interaction of our government and the public health of our community and our inequality of the government and how that has translated to inequality in our healthcare system. We often talk about statehood as needing a senator, needing a voting member of the House of Representatives. But the last few months, particularly the challenges with the National Guard, the police force, has made clear that one of the most important things we can get out of statehood is a full governor with the sovereignty and the self-determination rights that come from being a state. Madam Mayor, you have been every bit, if not more, of a governor than the governors of the 50 states. Your leadership has been inspiring, and your response compared to the terrible response from the federal government, particularly this White House, which continues to be a super spreader, has saved lives despite so many challenges. As we go forward with the budget today, people may ask, given all the crises that we're facing, is this really the type of financial priority we should be investing in? And subject to the balances and the adjustments that we have to make based on the reduced revenues, the answer has to be an unresounding yes. DC statehood would make an enormous difference in the health, safety, and lives of DC residents. And as the U.S. Senate continues to block coronavirus aid to the nation, it could be a way of ending the gridlock that has paralyzed the toxic politics of this nation. And so I'm proud to be a member of this commission and to work with the rest of you on these issues. And I want to say a particular thank you to Representative Garcia for his years of service as well. And allow you to turn it over to you for some opening remarks, Representative Garcia.
All right, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mayor Bowser, Chairman Menderson, Senator Strauss. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve with you and Senator Brown. I am so excited to have been given this opportunity. And, you know, it was just an incredible journey from the time that we revived the Tennessee plan to having seeing the bill passed in the House of Representatives. I know that there's just so much more to come, and I'll be on the side making sure that I could make contributions to this great effort. I know that we will get there before most of us die, I'm sure. And so, and we're as close as we've ever been, and so I'm excited. I'm thankful for being given the opportunity to make the contributions that I've made, and just look forward to the future of our state, quite frankly. Again, thank you so much, everybody, Eugene, all the staff, Anjali, and everybody who was incredibly supportive, Ms. Perry. Thank you so much for all the support you provided. Just excited about the future, really, of what's going to happen. So again, thank you so much.
Mayor, do you want to ask for the minutes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe all the members have the copy of the last meeting agenda, last minutes before them. So I want to move that for the commission's consideration.
I'll second.
And all those in favor of the minutes before us, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Any corrections? The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, I think next we want to hear from Senior Advisor Perry on the activities of the senior advisor's efforts on statehood.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Co-Chair Mendelson and other commissioners. For the people that may be watching at home, I'm Beverly Perry, Senior Advisor to the Mayor. And I, along with the Office of Federal and Regional Affairs, we serve as staff to this commission. So we see today's report as actually a 4-year report, which coincides with the presidential election. And for the past 4 years, this team has worked actively to educate people across America on the effects of the lack of statehood in the District of Columbia. But the most important highlight, well, one of the really important highlights that have allowed us to do that, during this period, we received a dedicated budget to fund that educational campaign. So we have used those funds to do some polling, to develop messages, so we would know what messages resonated with people across the country. And we have conducted public education and public awareness in many venues. During the recent presidential campaign, we were very pleased that all the candidates that were running on the Democratic ticket, all of them had pledged to support statehood. And so now that we have President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, we are looking very much forward to that. Like 4 years ago, when we had instituted the Tennessee Plan and accomplished our Constitution, we were very optimistic. So again, we're very optimistic, but we go Georgia, Georgia, Georgia. We're still optimistic. And speaking of Georgia, we have spread our message across all 5 U.S. regions: the Northwest, the Northeast, the Midwest, the Southwest, and the Southeast. And currently, we have run radio ads, we've run TV ads, we've run social media ads. And you might be interested to know that currently we have social media ads running in Georgia, just education. And other than that, you might ask, what are the accomplishments of the statehood team? And this year, as was mentioned, the largest highlight was a vote on statehood. in the U.S. House with the largest co-sponsorship. We worked very hard to help support that effort. We also, which is not talked about as much, the mayor appeared also before the Senate Democratic Policy Committee, and she appeared before the Senate Democratic Caucus to educate them on statehood. So we have momentum in the Senate, and we also have we've secured the largest sponsorship ever in the Senate. One other dimension that led to the statehood vote, Majority Leader Hoyer, over all these years, had never been a co-sponsor, had never supported the effort of statehood. So Mayor Bowser met with the majority leader and just didn't allow him to get out of it. And then he issued a very strong statement. And we think that was part of the momentum for the vote. We have another first. The business community, we had never found support from the business community. We convened members of the Federal City Council, and the mayor asked the business community to conduct research and to understand the business case of statehood. The Federal City Council has created a 501c3 that is doing research, and now for the first time we have engaged the business community. The Secretary's office, as you know, has $200,000 in grant money, and that the grant opportunity is open still and will not close until January 4th. But over the past year, we had support from Stand Up Democracy, which convened a Zoom panel with veterans. And they were engaged in a lot of educational type work as well. The Historic Society of Washington, D.C., they created the Context for Today, a web source which compiled information on DC statehood and home rule. Vision House produced a 27-page document on statehood, 50 years and counting, the struggle of DC statehood. And I think I missed the League of Women Voters. They did quite a bit of training. And the students for DC statehood, a group at GW, a group at Howard, a group at Georgetown, and a group at American U. So we have our young people engaged that is doing a lot of work. And of course, DC Vote, who has probably been at this longer than anyone, has conducted a lot of research and has supported the efforts a great bit. The outlook for the 117th Congress, I'm probably the most optimistic person in the world. I believe Georgia is going to create an opportunity for us, the opportunity that we were working so hard for in 2016, the reason I say we see this report as a 4-year report that coincides with the presidential election. I think that we may have this opportunity. I think we're on the eve of this opportunity. So, Delegate Garcia, I appreciate your comments, and we're going to move forward. Congresswoman Norton has already announced that she's already secured the largest co-sponsorship. We're not even in the 117th yet, but she's already developed her new bill, which is the bill that passed the House in that historic vote, and which she plans to introduce on the first day of the congressional session. She has secured 189 co-sponsors already, and all of the new members are not even sworn in yet. Senator Carper has already committed to introduce the Senate version of that bill on the first day as well. So I mentioned earlier that Georgia, as has been mentioned before, DC statehood has been invoked in the Georgia campaign. And we have heard that the reason, we've heard in news reports that the reason people should not vote for the Democratic candidates in the Senate, because that would mean DC statehood. We are hoping, and we are trying to educate people in Georgia in 3 congressional districts with a campaign, a social media campaign to say that's not equality. So we have those ads running, and we hope that will help solidify that opportunity that we looked for in 2016, that we believe that may be available to us next year. With that, MSNBC recently did a program, a show on statehood, and I think you all may be familiar with John Meacham, the historian, and he gave a very engaging account of the history of DC statehood and why why we should have our votes. We have queued that up to show that as part of this meeting, and with the co-chair's permission, it is about 10 minutes. I think it would be very befitting for everybody to see that as part of the Statehood Commission. I mean, one of the things that we do is we collect information to educate our people, to educate Washingtonians so they can tell their neighbors and tell their friends across the country about what other people are saying. And because there is so much in the news now, this is very enlightening historic perspective of John Meacham. I think you all might know that he did the biography of John Lewis recently. So with the permission of the co-chairs, if you're willing, if you have the time, we can put that that video in the queue. Is that okay?
And how long is this video?
It's about 10 to 12 minutes.
All right, so we're not talking about a feature-length 90-minute movie.
No. I assure you, it's not more than 12 minutes. Sheila, can we?
Okay. Now, can I hear? I can't hear. No, that's the video that they're playing. I don't think you can hear it.
Sheila, we don't have sound to it. No.
Official advisor to President-elect Biden. And Megan Hatcher-Mays is director of democracy policy in Indivisible, a progressive advocacy group. And she wrote about this issue for GQ magazine, a piece titled, The Senate is broken. Washington, D.C. statehood can save it. Let me start on that note, Megan. I mean, so there's an argument for representation just from like the people of D.C. deserve to have representation. But there's sort of broader argument you make in the piece about kind of balancing some of the structural problems of the Senate. What's the argument?
Yeah, I mean, the argument is, yes, as a DC resident, all I want for, my life is to have voting representation in Congress. That would be great. But it also starts to address some of the structural inequities that are built into our democracy itself. I mean, the way the Senate was designed was to give a lot of power to a little group of people, mostly, land-owning white gentlemen, and to deny enfranchisement, equal representation to Black people and people of color, which was largely the population of DC at the time and continues to be true to this day. So to give statehood to DC would be a huge win for DC residents, but it'd be a huge win for everybody who wants to, solve climate change or get health care or have a better Supreme Court, because DC right now doesn't have a say in any of that because the Senate is designed to give a lot of power to a very small group of people and to deny power to us. So that starts to sort of balance out the numbers problem in the Senate.
John, I think that, first of all, 100 is a nice round number in terms of the U.S. Senate, which I think is always ends up working on people in D.C. more than it should. But there's a sense that, adding states, you can't do that. But of course, we've done it a ton, and every time it's been partly a political process. Like, we've added states for frankly political reasons.
It's always been political. It's always been political and about power. In fact, from the very beginning, in fact, it was the disputes over the powers of the states versus the central government in the Articles of Confederation that led to the Constitutional Convention. And for what it's worth, James Madison had two ideas that would have been good. One was he wanted proportional representation in the Senate as well as the House, and he lost that. He also wanted a federal veto over state laws. Which was a non-starter, but an interesting nationalist view at that point. The battles over the Civil War, the battles that led to the Civil War, obviously were about statehood and what would be allowed in those states. So the various compromises that ultimately proved unsatisfactory and led to the cataclysm of the war and blessedly to emancipation. The last time we did this, it was kind of a Cold War experiment in the late 1950s with Alaska and Hawaii. Complicated stories, very political. Hawaii was seen as an attempt to bring us a state in that would be a different race, ethnicity for those issues, to kind of soften our image around the world because we were still under Jim Crow, we were still a segregated country, and part of the thinking was, hey, we're not racist. Look, we just and so that's an important part of that political dynamic. And Alaska is a state not least because of its geographic strategic importance in the Cold War. So we've done lots of things involving admitting states for lots of different reasons.
Yeah, that's a great point about the sort of, the kind of pragmatic calculations of the time as the things out of which the sort of what we now think of as essential structures of the nation are made, right? Like, you're not going to go back, right, and lop off Alaska or get rid of Hawaii. But of course, there was just some decision at some point, these people should be part of the union. And I think part of the problem too, Megan, is that, we're seeing this kind of structural problem grow up. When people talk about the Electoral College, where there's a 4.5-point swing between what Joe Biden won the popular vote and his Electoral College victory, which was by 40,000, 50,000 votes. That's even bigger in the Senate. Calculations are the Democrats now have to win the Senate by 7 points nationally. In a polarized country, that's very hard. You've kind of locked in this kind of minority rule problem.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be the case that, one party wins tens of millions more votes in the presidential election or in the Senate elections overall. And the best we can do is, at best case scenario, is a 50-50 split in the Senate. That speaks to a bad design. Yeah. And the way that you sort of fix that problem is to, just like you said, bring in new states. And the fact that we're talking about bringing in states of people who are wholly disenfranchised just makes the cake a little bit sweeter. But I mean, this should not be the case. And I think, you know, Democrats really need to start thinking big about some of the various ways that we can start to address this problem, because it can't just be every 2 to 4 years that we have an election and we're scraping and, you know, tooth and nail for a majority of one in the Senate, even though we're, you know, Democrats are very clearly, you know, the majority party.
Well, they have. I mean, that's the thing. There has been a durable national majority, somewhat improbably, through 7 of 8 elections. And John, you know, the Hawaii experience, I think, matches probably the closest to what Puerto Rico would be, right? This is a place that was fundamentally colonized by the U.S., where the history of that colonization was quite ugly. That was the case in Hawaii. It's been the case often in Puerto Rico, where there was resistance, I think, on the ground to even the giving up sort of self-determination, sovereignty. But there was just a vote in Puerto Rico. There does seem like there's some movement towards that. And that, it seems like that's the closest analog in terms of our history.
There's a rich literature on this, which goes to many of the essential questions about color and ethnicity and race that we continue to grapple with, which was, and there are scholars who've argued that having people who were Asian immigrants, essentially not immigrants, but Asians of Asian descent to become part of the United States, that was a more virtuous and kind of immigrant, right? And Puerto Rico would not be. And so the role of race in this, which fundamentally obviously is part of the current conversation, was a part of the conversation then. The idea of Americanism and who were the desirable people. Right. And it's a very uncomfortable American conversation, but it's one we've had. It's one we need to continue to have. And the great thing about the Constitution, as hard as it is to amend, it was built to amend.
That's also true. Great discussion from both you, John Meacham, Megan Hatcher-Mays. I really enjoyed that. Thank you both for that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we want to show that for thought-provoking. And if the commissioner would like to discuss the video, we would love to hear your engagement. If not, I turn this back to the mayor. That concludes our annual report.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. And I had the opportunity to watch it when it aired, and I continue to think it presents us with an opportunity to talk about what Puerto Rico strategy will be. I think that continues to be a pairing that Democrats want to make. And I think I don't know how recent our discussion is about what our political and tactical approach would be to discussions with Puerto Rico. I think that there's some benefit to it, and there's also some peril to that discussion, because Puerto Ricans haven't demonstrated the same commitment to statehood, or the same desire, I should say, for statehood that we have. So they're not exactly in the same place, nor are they exactly in the same place with their participation in the union, to be frank, that we are. So they gain a lot from being involved in the conversation with us, which I have no problem with. But we can't, I think, hitch ourselves to them, and we don't know exactly where they're headed. So that would be, I think that's all to say, we need to have a Puerto Rico strategy.
Thank you.
I did have the privilege of speaking with the incoming governor, the governor-elect of Puerto Rico, on the occasion of his election, and congratulated him. He has longstanding ties to Washington, D.C. He used to live here. He used to practice law here. He went to college here, went to graduate school at George Washington University, and has a good longstanding relationship with the District of Columbia. Puerto Rican statehood originates from their political right wing. It has more support amongst their more conservative and even some Republican members. DC Statehood has tended to originate from our political left, so they are very, very different. But certainly any opportunity to engage them where we can work towards cooperation while recognizing the differences in the two struggles, particularly their differential tax status, their lack of representation in the Electoral College, et cetera. It would be meaningful. And obviously, they struggle with issues that we don't. We struggle with issues that they don't. Independence for the District of Columbia is certainly not a realistic option. So we don't have as many choices as they do. But the dialogue opportunity is there.
Okay, thank you. Coach Henderson, did he have any comments?
I do not have comments. I'm sorry that I missed the video when it aired originally live because it is point and important.
Thank you. And we have a Puerto Rico strategy, Mayor. We are waiting. We are so far ahead of Puerto Rico. We have had a positive vote in the House, and we have gained momentum in the Senate. And we believe, I mean, Mrs. Norton feels very strongly that she's going to deliver another positive vote in the House. So we could be just a Senate vote away. And Puerto Rico is not, you know, they haven't had the hearing that we have had, or they haven't had, and their vote, you know, as Senator Strauss said, their vote, they have a three-way vote. They vote for independence, they vote for statehood, or they vote against statehood. And I think the last that I looked at their vote, they had a positive vote for statehood, but it was like 50.9%. It wasn't even 51%. So, and it was a very low turnout vote. So they don't have an overwhelming call like we do when we got 76% of the people to vote yes for statehood. That's the difference. And so come January 5th, we may have a strategy with just a senatorial strategy. And that concludes my report, the report of the team. And I think we turn it back to you for vote on the budget for the delegation office.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, is that the next thing is you say to put the budget in on the table?
I think yes. I believe Senator Strauss is going to present the how they're going to how they propose to spend the appropriation that they've received for this year.
Thank you, Chairman Reynolds and Mayor Bowser. I appreciate this opportunity to present the delegation's state initiative spending plan for 2021. The current fiscal year 2021 budget under the jurisdiction of the commission is $240,992, consisting of $163,550 in the area of personnel services assigned to the Office of Statehood Delegation, and $77,442 in non-personnel services to fund statehood initiatives subject to the allocation by this commission. We do recognize the difficulties and budgetary spending pressures based on district revenues due to the current health emergency. This request reflects a decrease of $3,877 from the improved fiscal year 2020 level of $244,869, representing an overall decrease of 1.6%. All of our revenue sources are from local appropriated or donated funds, consistent with the current appropriation statute. The district is prohibited from spending federal funds allocated to these stated initiatives. In terms of the area of non-personnel fiscal year 2021 spending, Our overall budget has decreased by a percentage of 22.3% from 90 include cuts in funds that were budgeted for delegation travel to targeted states, as well as outreach to international organizations, including the UNPO. Obviously, if and when domestic or international travel returns to normal, we can revisit those. But we do plan to maintain funding for the successful 51-star celebrity endorsement program, which is proposed to be continued at levels that were already reduced from prior years. We do want to maintain funding for the media outreach programs, including Senator Brown's successful internet radio show, as well as the award-winning cable TV show DC Stated Today, which Representative Garcia ran so well, and which we hope in his absence to continue with the same success without him. This budget will also feature a one-time special allocation of approximately $7,500 to cover the transition expenses associated with the incoming U.S. representative-elect. Despite these reduced funding pressures, we did feel it was important to maintain the same level of support to this transition that we accorded Representative Garcia when he first took office. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss these programs and initiatives. I'm happy to answer any questions. You also have some supporting documents. The first is the fiscal year 2021 approved budget and financial plan, which is a document generated by the budget process. You have, and then I guess going from the last page to the next three, or continuing in order. The first is the breakdown by object group class, which I know, Mr. Chairman, you've encouraged us to provide for you as well. A broader, and for lack of a better way to do this, a broader chart of the statehood initiatives and the overall breakdown of the individual line items, which is essentially a reproduction of table AR 0/3 from the budget. I thank you for that opportunity. To do that, the delegation has been operating since September, sort of on an interim basis, sort of a continuing resolution, as it were, pending formal approval of this year's spending plan by this commission. Well, I'm happy to answer questions for discussion purposes. With the support of my colleagues, let me move the adoption of the spending plan for discussion and approval.
Be a second, I will second that. Senator, let me just say that I find that the breakdown by group object class of the non-personal spending is very helpful. And I appreciate that there is that breakdown.
Provide that.
Madam Mayor, do you want me to call the vote? If there's no other discussion?
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I'm ready to vote.
Then why don't we proceed? We have the motion before us, which is the to approve the budget as presented from the commission, which includes that breakdown by a group object class. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? If Madam Mayor, co-chair, would confirm we're not hearing or seeing any no votes.
No votes. I think they're all in favor.
So then the motion is carried unanimously.
Okay. We thank the commission for that approval, and we appreciate everybody's consideration of our request. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. And once again, I want to thank Representative Garcia, this entire commission, the staff at the Senior Advisor's Office, Beverly Perry, Eugene Kinlow, and all who work for our Statehood HQ. And I think that's all the business we have before us, Mr. Chairman. Is there anything we need to discuss further?
Well, I don't know if there's any public on the Zoom call, if there's any public comment. And nobody's indicating that there's public comment to comment. I do say, echo what you said, Madam Mayor, about thanking everyone who's worked on statehood this year, including your senior advisor and Eugene Kinlow, and of course the statehood delegation. But I also want to just take a second to recognize and thank Franklin Garcia for his service because he is stepping down as the representative, which he's doing voluntarily. It's not like some of us who lose at the polling place. I know that during the years that you served as representative, you've done so with great dedication, commitment, and sincerity, and I want to thank you for that. Madam Mayor?
Okay, with no further business before the commission, we are adjourned. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.